The sleeper has awakened. We finally have some official footage and footage descriptions, comments about Dune Part 2. Gizmodo has the complete description of the teaser. First Dune Part 2 footage features Timothée Chalamet riding a sandworm. It begins with Paul and Chani sitting on top of a sand dune, and he's talking about water. Tells her that everywhere she sees, imagine water, imagine swimming, and she doesn't believe him. And they do have a moment in preparation. I think she asked him to talk more about the waters of his homeworld. And we definitely need to have those moments of this building relationship because it's a very vital part of the story, especially moving forward. Their relationship is very integral to the unfolding story. I hope that we would have that in Dune Part 1 with Lady Jessica and Duke Leto. That was something I was really missing. I mean, they did allude to it, but really wanted to see their love for each other. I'm hoping they'll do this relationship right in that regard as well. Very interesting part to begin it with Chani and Paul together. Not in a vision, it's actually happening. And then it talks about the voiceover of Princess Irulan. So this is interesting. Princess Irulan is talking of the deep secrets of the planet Arrakis. And she asks, what if Paul is still alive? And while this is happening, there's a bunch of shots. One of Feyd-Rautha, who appears to be a deadly assassin, and here describes him as having bright white skin and no hair. And the scene itself here, I thought that was interesting. It says it looks almost completely black and white. Visually different scene from what you see on Arrakis. So I guess kind of this monogram look of Getty Prime, I'm assuming, is where this is. Next, it says that there are two people fighting in a very red environment. And I wonder if that will actually be in the gladiator arena. Then also a shot of a character's head cocking back with bright blue eyes. So after that moment, Chani starts to psych Paul up for riding the sandworm. So she is there to observe the rite. Anyway, so she's part of the ceremony. Paul is running. And this is interesting too. Is he running to get on the sandworm? Because he shouldn't be running. He should have his position in the sandworm's path because the thumper is going and it's luring the sandworm to this location and he's going to be using his hooks to reach out. And once he gets his hooks into the sandworm, that will cause the scale to lift up, which will then cause the sandworm to rotate, lifting Paul to the upper part of the sandworm, and then we'll be fully riding it. And now we have Stilgar talking to Paul. And this is actually from the book. Be simple, direct, don't try anything fancy. Get on the sandworm. So I'm actually excited to see that interchange in particular. This description describes as him showboating. Stilgar had to kind of reprimand him in his positioning because he could have gotten caught in like a patch of drum sand. So he actually could have been stuck in some sand. I'm very interested to see how the scales will look. And it's interesting also too because Timothée says that that was all practical, him physically interacting with the sandworm. He has an actual thing to interact with, which is also how David Lynch is doing. They did build the sandworms in that film, so kind of similar. Then there's more thopters, dozens of thopters flying, and two people fighting in black and white. Paul and Chani kiss. Finally, to end it, we have a shot of Paul walking to the top of a ridge and hundreds of people below him. Throws his fist in the air and they all cheer. And I think that is the salute. He does the iconic Atreides salute. This is then quickly intercut with another shot, a dark shadowed scene of two people ready to have a knife fight. They're not even sure. They said it's most likely Paul and Feyd, but I guess it's not clear enough to make that determination if it's them or not. So it might not be them. Actually, that's a lot of detailed and very significant shots. There's still like way more that is still yet to be revealed. But what they did reveal, I mean, it's very significant. I'm glad at least that they're trying to like build up the hype, really give us some meat to work with, to really dive into and see what's in store for us. I wouldn't have pictured them releasing footage of the sandworm ride. I mean, that's a very significant scene, very pivotal time in Paul's arc. I thought we would get sandworm footage for sure, but that definitely surprised me that they're just full-on hero's journey arc. We want to make sure that everyone knows what this story is about. So we are going to see some shots of Josh Brolin and Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Jessica with the face tattoos, but also Lady Margot. And we will see Beast Raban, but no Baron and no Emperor. So there we go. a lot of fights are off screen, so to speak. We know they're happening, but are not really described in detail in the book. So yes, a lot of off-screen fights in the book that can be easily turned into a scene. Like Lady Jessica's training of Paul with the voice, you know, they didn't actually describe that scene, but we know it did happen. There are cases where they have taken those scenes that we know did happen, that Frank Herbert did say, but that weren't described in detail. So I can definitely see that happening as well, because there is a lot as far as like the Imperial Court goes as well. So we know there's going to be those shots and scenes happening kind of off screen, because a lot of that part towards the end happens from Paul's perspective and his visions of the present that's happening. So he kind of lets us know how the political pieces are kind of falling as far as the events on Arrakis. So that'll be interesting to see more of those background scenes of the Imperial Court, and also, yeah, again, for the fight scenes, because we know that the legend of Muad'Dib, you know, he's going to establish that reputation and will come to the attention of the Baron and the Emperor as well. So we do know that there's going to be some fights to establish that fearsome reputation of Muad'Dib. And who is Muad'Dib? There's several scenes of knife fighting, so that could be anything. But we do know somewhat of an idea of what will involve Fade. But there were some that I just wasn't sure about, like the ones that was in black and white, that scene, and the one that was entirely in red. And then I guess another scene of two fighters that they couldn't really determine who that was, but they kind of guessed that it was Fade and Paul. So definitely a lot of action, but also some time to showcase the relationships between Paul and Stilgar and Chani. Hopefully we'll have some really good time there to showcase those growing relationships that we haven't seen much at all. So that would be very interesting. So all in all, a lot of good information. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3 comes out May 5th. And it is rumored that this teaser trailer here will be played before that movie. So hopefully we won't have to wait that long. They might release it before, but at the very least, it will release worldwide on May 5th. But hopefully it's before then.